So when you look at a flower, what do you see? Something beautiful, right? Something that smells incredible. But what you're really looking at is the stage for a high-stakes biological drama. We're talking seduction, competition, and a story that is absolutely essential for so much of the food that we eat. Let's dive into the secret sex life of flowers. Okay, we all know these two, an apple and a strawberry. They're delicious, they're a staple in our kitchens. But their origin story is way more complex than you might think. In fact, believe it or not, one of these isn't what a botanist would call a true fruit. So which one is it? To figure that out, we have to rewind the clock, way back before the fruit even existed, and look deep inside the flower that created it, because this whole process is driven by one single goal. And that ultimate mission is, of course, sexual reproduction, to make the next generation. Everything about a flower, I mean everything, its colors, its fragrance, its shape, is all designed to get this one critical job done. And it all happens in a very specific arena. This right here is the pistil, the female reproductive organ. So think of the stigma up at the top as the landing pad. The style is like the long runway. And down here, the ovary. This is the grand prize chamber, and it's holding the precious ovules, which contain the female egg cells. With the stage set, let's meet our two main players. On one side, you've got the pollen grain. It's this tiny little package carrying the male gametes. Its whole mission? Travel from another flower and stick the landing on that stigma. And on the other side, we have the ovule tucked away safely inside the ovary, just waiting. And now the journey to fertilization begins. But listen, getting from the stigma down to the ovule is no simple trip. The pollen grain has to land, it has to prove it's the right one, and then it has to start an incredible race to deliver its genetic cargo. This is what we call first contact. You know, hundreds, maybe even thousands of pollen grains can land on the stigma. But not just any pollen gets to play. The flower has this highly sophisticated security system to make sure only pollen from the same species, the right pollen, is allowed to move forward. So once a compatible pollen grain gets the green light, it germinates. It literally grows a tube, you can see it right here, that burrows its way down through the style. It's a full-on race against all the other pollen tubes, and they're all gunning for the same destination, the ovary. But this isn't just a physical sprint. It is a continuous chemical dialogue. The pistil and the pollen are constantly talking to each other, recognizing friend from foe. If the pollen's from a different species, nope, its growth is shut down. But if it's a match, the pistil actually helps it along, promoting its growth and guiding it towards the ovule. Okay, the pollen tube has made it, it's reached the ovule and delivered its payload. And this, right here, is where the real magic of flowering plants happens. It is a spectacular event, a kind of biological two-for-one deal that sets them apart from almost all other life on Earth. It's called double fertilization, and it is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Not one, but two separate fusion events happen almost at the same time. And this whole process is totally unique to flowering plants, the angiosperms. All right, let's break down what's going on. The pollen tube releases two male gametes into the embryo sac, which is inside that ovule. Each one of these two gametes has a very specific and very different job to do. And here's the brilliant part. The first male gamete fuses with the egg cell. That's called syngamy, and it creates the zygote, the cell that's going to grow into the baby plant, the embryo. Then the second male gamete fuses with two other nuclei right in the center. This is called triple fusion, and it creates something called the primary endosperm nucleus, or PEN. And that will become the food supply for the embryo. How cool is that? So, we have an embryo and we have a food supply. Mission accomplished. Now the plant's focus shifts from creation to development. It is time to build the seed. And this is just genius on the plant's part. Before the embryo even starts to divide, the endosperm develops first. It's like the plant makes sure the lunchbox is packed and ready to go before the baby plant starts growing and gets hungry. With that food supply ready, the zygote starts to divide. It develops into this simple, round structure called the globular embryo. This is the very first stage of our new plant's life. As it keeps growing, it starts to take on a pretty distinct heart shape. And at this stage, you can actually start to see the beginnings of the cotyledons, which will be the very first leaves of the plant. And finally, it develops into a mature embryo. It's a little miniature plant, totally complete with a root tip, a shoot tip, and those cotyledons. It's fully formed, it's packed with its endosperm lunch, and it's ready for its big journey into the world as a seed. So now let's zoom out. All of this incredible microscopic action results in something we can all see and hold. The fertilized flower completely transforms itself, creating the very things that are designed to protect and spread the next generation. And here is the big payoff. The ovule we've been following this whole time, that becomes the seed. The wall of the ovary develops into the fruit wall, which we call the pericarp. And this brings us right back to our original question. A true fruit, like a mango, develops only from the ovary. But in a false fruit, like an apple or a strawberry, other parts of the flower, like the thalamus, also swell up and become part of that fleshy fruit we eat. So yep, the apple was our false fruit. So that whole process of pollination and fertilization, that's the standard operating procedure. But, nature absolutely loves to break its own rules. Some plants have evolved this remarkable shortcut, a way to produce seeds while skipping the sex part altogether. It's called apomixis. And really, it's a form of asexual reproduction that just looks like sexual reproduction. The plant makes a perfectly good seed, but it does it without any fertilization. The embryo is basically a clone of the mother plant. Now, why does any of this matter to us? Well, for agriculture, the implications are just huge. Hybrid crops are incredibly productive, but their seeds don't breed true. As this quote from our source material explains, if we could get hybrid plants to reproduce through apomixis, farmers could save their own seeds, creating genetically identical, high-yield crops year after year after year. And that leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. Understanding a flower's sex life isn't just for biology class. If we can actually harness nature's own reproductive cheat code, this apomixis process, could we unlock a whole new green revolution? Could we create permanent, self-propagating supercrops to help feed our planet? The secret, it seems, might just be hidden inside a flower.